You'd be surprised how fast your dignity evaporates when you wake up face first in a grocery store parking lot with your pants slightly askew and a family of four staring down at you like they just found a dead bird. That's how this whole mess started. Not the fainting spells, they'd been happening on and off since high school, but the story I'm about to tell you. The story of how I accidentally fell in love with the last person I should have. My name's Drew. I'm 28, I live in Boston, and according to my neurologist, I have a non-life-threatening but highly inconvenient condition that causes me to pass out without warning. Usually from a drop in blood pressure, stress, heat, pain, standing too long, it's like playing fainting roulette. So yeah, that's fun. After my third ambulance ride in 6 months, my doctor recommended joining a support group. Apparently it was a good way to build community and reduce isolation. What he didn't mention was that it met in the basement of a Unitarian church that smelled like old carpet and wet paper towels. But I went because what else was I supposed to do? The first meeting was awkward. A circle of metal folding chairs, a box of stale granola bars, and a dozen people trying very hard not to make eye contact. Most were older, retired folks, some teens with overprotective moms. Then there was me, trying not to look like I was too cool for this, even though I absolutely felt like I was. And that's when he walked in. Lucas. Tall, tattooed, wearing an oversized hoodie and joggers like he'd just rolled out of bed or was on his way to the gym. He had this casual swagger to him, like none of it fazed him. The room, the circle of strangers, the fact that he showed up 15 minutes late with a Dunkin' iced coffee in hand. He looked around, gave a small nod, and said, "Hey, Lucas." That was it. No last name, no explanation, just Lucas. And then he sat down. Next to me. He smelled like cedar and cinnamon gum. We didn't talk that first meeting. He didn't even share his story. He just sat back, sipping his drink, listening, occasionally smirking when someone said something funny, and I kept pretending not to notice the way his knee kept brushing mine. It was stupid. I wasn't there to meet anyone. And Lucas? He didn't exactly scream available. He had this aloof energy, like he was only half present. Still, something about him pulled at me. It was the third meeting when he finally spoke. "Passed out in the shower once," he said, completely deadpan. Woke up with the water still running and my ass on the drain like a plug, flooded the whole bathroom. The room erupted into laughter. I laughed too, but mostly I stared. His voice was deeper than I expected. He grinned at the reaction, but then his eyes flicked to mine, like he was checking to see if I was laughing. And when I met his gaze, something shifted. After the meeting, he caught up with me near the parking lot. "You're Drew, right?" he asked, falling into step beside me. "Yeah," I said, a little too quickly. "And you're, Lucas?" "Look at that," he smirked. "We remember each other's names. We must be best friends now." I snorted. "Sure, that's how it works in support group law." He gave a small laugh, then glanced down at my phone in my hand. "Hey, speaking of best friend duties," he held up his own phone. "They make you fill out that emergency contact sheet yet?" "Yeah." "I don't really have anyone," he said casually. "No family here. I usually just leave it blank or put my old landlord's number." "Think I can put you down?" I blinked. "Wait, me? You don't have to answer my calls or anything. It's just, protocol." He shrugged, like it wasn't a big deal. But his tone had softened. I hesitated. "Look, you can say no," he added quickly. "I get it. I'd say no too, if some guy asked me that after knowing me for 2 weeks." "No," I said, then caught myself. "I mean, yes, it's fine. Put me down." Lucas smiled, and I swear, for the first time, it reached his eyes. "Cool," he said. "I'll do the same for you." I didn't expect it to mean anything. I didn't expect to get a call at 1:13 a.m. 2 weeks later, saying Lucas had fainted in a bar bathroom, and the EMTs couldn't reach anyone else. And I definitely didn't expect what would happen when I showed up. When my phone buzzed at 1:13 a.m., I was mid-dream. Something about a giant IKEA maze and no exit. I didn't recognize the number at first, almost let it go to voicemail. But then I saw the area code, Boston. I rubbed my eyes, still half asleep, and answered. "Hello? Is this Drew Taylor?" a calm voice asked. "Yeah. Who's this?" "This is EMT Ramos with Boston EMS. You're listed as an emergency contact for a Lucas Mendoza?" Suddenly, I was very awake. Yes I am. What happened? Is he okay?" "He fainted at a bar in Fenway. He's alert now, but disoriented. Says he'd prefer not to go to the hospital, but we legally can't leave him alone. He asked if you could come get him." My mouth went dry. "Okay. Yeah. Text me the address. I'll be there in 20. I threw on jeans, grabbed my hoodie and keys, and was out the door before my brain could fully process what was happening. I wasn't even sure what I was feeling. Worry? Adrenaline? Definitely not chill. When I pulled up to the side street behind the bar, the ambulance lights were off but parked at an angle. 2 EMTs were standing beside it, and one of them waved me over. Behind him, slouched on the curb with a blanket around his shoulders, was Lucas. He looked not great. His skin was pale, lips chapped, hair damp like he'd splashed water on his face, but he still managed that same crooked grin when he saw me. "Hey," he said, voice hoarse. "You came." I crouched beside him. "Jesus, Lucas, what happened?" He shrugged, like it wasn't a big deal. "Stood up too fast in the bathroom. Lights went out. I woke up hugging a urinal. Super classy." "Have you eaten today? Does half a bag of Doritos count?" I glanced at the EMT, who raised an eyebrow as if to say, "This guy." He handed me a form to sign, saying Lucas refused hospital transport, and that I was now assuming responsibility, whatever that meant. I signed. Once they left, I turned to Lucas. "All right, you're coming to my place." He blinked at me. "Seriously? You can't go home alone like this. I'll be fine." "No, you won't," I snapped, then softened. "Just let me do this, please." He studied me for a second, then nodded. 20 minutes later, he was sitting on my couch wrapped in a blanket, a Gatorade in one hand and a microwaved burrito in the other. I sat across from him, watching like he might keel over again at any second. "You really didn't have to do all this," he said after a while. "You listed me as your emergency contact, remember?" I said. "This is what we do now." Lucas looked down at the Gatorade, twisting the cap slowly. "Yeah, I didn't think you'd actually come." "Why would you think that?" He gave a half shrug. "Most people don't stick around." Something in his voice made me pause. "I'm not most people," I said quietly. He didn't say anything for a moment, just took another sip. Then, almost under his breath, "Yeah, I'm starting to see that." The silence between us shifted, growing heavier but not uncomfortable. I noticed the way he leaned into the couch cushions, the way his eyes were starting to droop. He looked young, softer than usual, like the armor he always wore had slipped. "You can crash here tonight," I offered. "I've got an extra blanket. You need anything, water, bathroom, another burrito, you just yell." He looked up at me, eyes a little glassy. "You sure?" "Yeah, Lucas, I'm sure." He stared at me for a long moment, like he was trying to figure something out. Then he nodded. "Okay, thanks, Drew. Really." I stood, rubbing the back of my neck. "No problem." I turned to grab the extra pillow, and as I did, I heard him say softly, "I wasn't lying. When I said I looked forward to seeing you, I froze. And for the first time since we met, I didn't know what to say. The thing about sleeping on the couch is that you never really sleep. Especially when the guy who's been living rent-free in your brain for the last month is doing the actual sleeping 5 feet away from you." Lucas passed out almost immediately, curled on his side with one arm tucked under the pillow I'd given him. His breathing slowed into that soft rhythm that only comes with real exhaustion. I sat in the armchair across the room, not even pretending to sleep, just watching, like some kind of fainting spell bodyguard. Somewhere around 3 a.m., I got up, tiptoed into the kitchen, and poured a glass of water just to have something to do. That's when I heard it. "Drew?" I turned. Lucas was sitting up, hair sticking out in every direction, blanket tangled around his legs. "Yeah?" He rubbed his face and looked around like he wasn't sure where he was. "I forgot I was here for a sec. Thought I was dreaming." "Not a dream," I said. forcing a smile. "You're on my very real, very old IKEA couch." He blinked at me, then ran a hand through his hair. "Sorry again, for all of this." "Lucas," I said, crossing my arms. "Stop apologizing. You're allowed to not be okay." He nodded, but something about the way he looked down, jaw tight, told me he didn't believe it. "You want some water?" I asked, holding up the glass. He hesitated, then got up slowly and padded toward me. He was wearing a loose t-shirt and joggers, and even half asleep, he still looked unfairly good. As he took the glass from me, our fingers brushed, just barely, and that stupid electric thing happened again, like my skin recognized his before my brain could even catch up. "Thanks," he said softly, sipping. "You always like this?" "Like what?" "Calm, like you've got it together," I huffed. "You've clearly never seen me deal with Comcast customer service." He laughed, really laughed. It was low and a little raspy, but genuine. It filled the kitchen in a way I hadn't expected. After a second, his expression changed. Softer. Quieter. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Sure." "Why'd you say yes when I asked to list you as my emergency contact?" I leaned back against the counter. "Because I didn't want you to feel alone." Lucas studied me, eyes narrowing slightly like he was weighing that answer. "But I was a stranger." "Yeah, but you didn't feel like one." Silence stretched between us, the kind that wasn't awkward, just loaded. Like we'd stumbled into a moment that neither of us quite knew what to do with. He set the glass down, then glanced toward the living room. "I should get back to sleep." "Yeah," I said. "Of course." But before he turned to leave, he hesitated. "Can I ask for something weird?" That caught me off guard. Sure." His voice dropped a notch. Could you just sit with me? For a bit?" I blinked. "Like, now?" He nodded, almost shyly. "Just till I fall asleep. I know it's stupid, but tonight kinda messed with me." My heart thudded in my chest, loud enough I was sure he could hear it. "It's not stupid," I said quietly. "Yeah, of course." We ended up back in the living room, both sitting on the couch this time. He lay down, head on the pillow, and I sat on the edge, close enough that my knee was near his arm but not touching. The room was dim, quiet, except for the ticking of the wall clock and the occasional sound of traffic outside. After a while, he whispered, "You've got nice hands." I looked down at them, startled. Thanks?" "Sorry," he mumbled. "Didn't mean to make it weird. I just notice stuff when I'm tired." I smiled to myself, staring at the floor. "It's not weird." A minute passed. Then another. And then, as his breathing slowed, just as he was on the edge of sleep, I heard him murmur, "I hope you don't disappear." And I sat there, frozen, heart thudding, wondering if he meant to say that out loud, wondering if I could promise him I wouldn't. The next morning, I woke up with a stiff neck, a hoodie full of couch lint, and a very asleep Lucas using my thigh as a pillow. Apparently, at some point during the night, he'd shifted and ended up curled halfway into my lap. His head rested on my leg like it had always belonged there, one arm draped across his stomach, blanket bunched around his waist. His breathing was deep, rhythmic, peaceful. I didn't move. I should have, sure. I could have eased him off, gone to my bed, started some coffee. But I didn't, because there was something about that moment. His face soft in the early light, his hair a total mess, the quiet weight of him against me, that made it feel like moving would ruin something. So I sat there, for a long time, just existing next to him. Eventually he stirred. His eyes fluttered open, and for a second, they didn't register where he was. Then he looked up, at me, at his position, and blinked. "Shit," he said, quickly sitting up, brushing sleep from his eyes. "Sorry, was I human?" "Yeah," I said, stretching my legs. "You slept." "That's allowed." His ears went a little red. He avoided my gaze. muttering, "Didn't mean to sprawl on you like that." I didn't mind. He glanced at me then, and for the first time, didn't look away. Something passed between us, something silent and charged, like a current snapping between two close wires. It lasted barely a second, but I felt it. I know he felt it. I cleared my throat. "You hungry?" "Starving." We ended up at a diner around the corner, the kind of place where the coffee is always burnt, and the pancakes are just this side of soggy. But Lucas ordered a double stack and inhaled it like it was gourmet. Midway through breakfast, he glanced at me over his mug. "So, this support group," he said. "You think it actually helps?" I shrugged. "It doesn't fix anything, but it makes you feel less like a freak." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think that's why I kept coming back. That and—" He trailed off, eyes flicking up to meet mine. "You." I almost dropped my fork. "You're the only one there who talks like a person," he added quickly. "Not like they're reading from a therapy worksheet." "Oh," I said, trying not to visibly short-circuit. "Yeah, well, that's me. Regular-ass person." He smiled. "A good one." It was the first time I saw him genuinely shy. Not guarded, not playing it cool, just open. I didn't know what to do with that. That week, he started texting me more. Not just the usual check-ins, but actual conversations. "Lucas, got caught dozing off in the bathroom at work." Classy, right? Me. "That's one way to practice self-care, Lucas. More like face-to-tile therapy." Me. "Did you faint?" Lucas. "Nope, just tired. You're rubbing off on me. I hydrate now." He made jokes about how boring his job was. I told him about the time I fainted on a first date in front of a sushi conveyor belt. We talked every day. It became a thing. The next support group meeting was different. He sat next to me like it was automatic, like there'd never been any other option. At the end, instead of grabbing coffee, we just started walking. Aimless. Talking about nothing and everything. Past relationships. Family stuff. Why he'd moved to Boston. Then he said, "I had a boyfriend once, back in Philly." I looked over. "Oh?" He nodded. "Didn't end well. He was controlling. Made me feel like my condition made me weak. Said I used it as an excuse." I stopped walking. "That's messed up." Lucas shrugged like he wasn't used to being comforted. "It's whatever." "No," I said. "It's not whatever." He met my eyes then, and for once he didn't try to play it off with a smirk or a joke. "You don't look at me like I'm broken," he said quietly. "I don't get that a lot." "You're not broken," I said. "You're just figuring stuff out, same as the rest of us." And before I could overthink it, I reached out and touched his hand. Just lightly. Just enough. He didn't pull away. After that night, things shifted. It wasn't dramatic or sudden. There was no kiss in the rain or long confessions under moonlight. But something changed. Lucas started texting me good morning. I started noticing the way he'd lean a little closer when we talked, or how his hand would brush mine and stay there half a second longer than necessary. We still went to support group every Thursday, but now we always left together. Our post-meeting hangouts moved from late-night diners to my apartment, and then, eventually, his. We'd sit on the couch for hours, sometimes talking, sometimes just existing side by side, the quiet not uncomfortable anymore. He brought over his record player one night, claiming I needed to expand my sad gay music library. I made him a grilled cheese that he declared criminally good. He started leaving a toothbrush in my bathroom. I didn't ask him to, but I didn't want him to take it back either. Still, neither of us said anything. No labels, no conversations. Just this steady, slow build between us that felt too fragile to name out loud. That was, until the night I fainted in the shower. It had been a long day. Back-to-back Zoom meetings, skipped meals, too much caffeine, not enough sleep. I thought I could power through a hot shower and call it a night. Next thing I knew, I was waking up on the cold tile, naked, shivering, my head ringing. Everything was blurry. I couldn't tell how long I'd been out. Instinct kicked in. I fumbled my way out of the bathroom, dripping water across the floor as I reached for my phone. My fingers shook as I tapped the screen. The first name in my recents, Lucas. He picked up on the first ring. Drew? I think I fainted, I whispered, still on the floor. I hit my head. I'm okay, I think. But I'm alone and I'm coming, he said, already moving. Keep talking to me, okay? It took him 10 minutes. I stayed on the line, voice shaky, trying not to cry. When he finally burst into my apartment, eyes wide, hair windblown, he didn't even hesitate. He wrapped me in a towel, helped me sit upright, then just held me there on the floor, my wet skin against his hoodie. You're okay, he whispered, rocking me slightly. You're okay. I've got you. My head was throbbing. My whole body ached. But in that moment, I'd never felt safer. Later, after he helped me into bed and made sure I'd eaten something, he stayed. I was lying there, half sunken into my pillow, when I saw him pacing near the window. You good? I asked, voice still hoarse. He turned, eyes heavy with something I couldn't name. No, I blinked. What? I'm not good, he said, stepping closer. You scared the shit out of me, Drew. I'm okay now. That's not the point. He ran a hand through his hair, then looked at me like he was holding something in for too long. You don't get it. When I saw your name pop up and you said those words, I think I fainted. I've never felt panic like that because I realized I'm not just your emergency contact on paper. I am your emergency. I care, Drew, too much. And I don't know what to do with that. Silence fell over the room like a dropped sheet. I sat up slowly. My heart was pounding. You think I don't feel the same? I asked. He didn't answer, just stared at me like he was afraid to believe it. So I said it. I care about you, Lucas. Probably more than I've let on. You showing up tonight, that wasn't just support group protocol. That was you. That was us. He exhaled shakily, his whole posture deflating. Then why the hell haven't either of us said it? I don't know, I admitted. Fear, timing, being idiots. That got a small smile out of him. Then, finally, he crossed the room, sat on the edge of my bed, and reached for my hand. You're not allowed to faint alone anymore, he said. That's the rule. Deal, I whispered. He leaned in, slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. His lips met mine, gentle and careful, like a question. My answer was pulling him closer. The first kiss didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like relief, like a breath you didn't realize you'd been holding finally released, soft and warm and real. His lips were a little chapped, his fingers trembling slightly where they touched my jaw, and still, it felt perfect. Not polished, not cinematic. Just honest. Lucas pulled back just enough to rest his forehead against mine. Well, he whispered, that was overdue. I laughed, quiet and breathless. A little. He looked at me then, really looked, like he was trying to memorize my face in that moment. We're gonna talk about this, right? Like, in daylight? Absolutely, I said. I'll even make coffee, possibly pancakes. Shit, he murmured, smiling. You're gonna ruin me. You say that like it's a bad thing. The next morning was slow, but not awkward. He made eggs while I sat at the kitchen counter, one leg curled under me, still wearing the shirt I'd passed out in. I watched him move around my kitchen like it was familiar, like he already belonged there. He glanced over his shoulder. You always stare this much? Only when someone saves my naked, unconscious body. That's fair. After breakfast, we talked. Really talked. He told me how hard it had been, pretending this thing between us wasn't happening. How scared he was to ruin it. How he'd never really done this before, falling for someone while trying to manage a part of himself that still felt broken. I told him I understood. That I wasn't in this to fix him. I just wanted to be there, with him, beside him, whatever that looked like. When he kissed me again, it wasn't careful. It was certain. From then on, it wasn't just support group Thursday. It was our Thursday. We still went, but now we'd walk in together, sit next to each other, laugh at the same jokes. People started giving us that look, the one that said, "Oh, so this is a thing now." We didn't correct them. One night after the meeting, we were walking home, hands grazing in the dark, when he asked, "You ever think about how weird this is?" I raised an eyebrow. Define weird. I don't know, just how we met, how this started. I thought about it, about the way his name looked on my emergency contact form, about the way he said, "You came," the night I found him on the sidewalk wrapped in a paramedic's blanket, about the look in his eyes when I was the one on the bathroom floor. "Yeah," I said. "It's weird." He smiled, bumping his shoulder into mine. "We're kind of a messed up origin story. Or a really specific meet cute." "Oh yeah," he laughed. "Guy faints. Other guy shows up, romance ensues. Real Hallmark stuff." I looked over at him, warmth spreading through my chest. "Lucas?" "Yeah?" I don't think I've ever felt safer with anyone. He didn't say anything right away. Just reached for my hand, threading his fingers through mine. And in the silence between us, I knew. We weren't broken. We were just finding each other. One blackout, one coffee, one quiet, steady touch at a time. 3 months in, we had our first real fight. Not about anything big, just grocery lists and laundry piles and one stupid comment about needing space after I asked him why he hadn't been sleeping over as much that week. He shut down. I snapped. It ended with him walking out and me slamming the fridge door so hard the Brita filter cracked. For a while, I thought maybe that was it. Maybe we weren't built for the part that comes after the slow burn romance, the day-to-day part. The part where life keeps happening, and you still have to show up for each other, even when it's messy. I didn't hear from him the rest of the night. Or the next morning. Around noon, I texted, "I'm sorry. Can we talk when you're ready?" He didn't reply. I went to support group alone that Thursday. It felt hollow without him next to me, without his jokes or the casual brush of his leg against mine. The chair beside me stayed empty, and I kept glancing at the door, hoping he'd walk in late with a coffee in hand like nothing happened. He didn't. I just stepped outside after the meeting when I saw him leaning against the hood of his car, looking like he hadn't slept. "Hey," he said quietly. I stopped a few feet away. "Hey." He looked down at his shoes. "You were right. I was pulling away." I didn't say anything, just waited. He looked up. I got scared. "Of what?" "Of how much I like you," he said. "Of how real this feels. Of needing someone and not knowing how to ask for help without feeling weak." My throat tightened. I grew up with the kind of people who told you to walk it off, suck it up, stop being dramatic. He continued. "So this thing, this us, it's good. It's so good that it freaks me the hell out." I stepped closer, slow. "You think I don't get scared too?" He smiled weakly. "You hide it better." I reached for his hand. "You don't have to be perfect around me. You just have to be honest." He looked at our hands, then back up at me. "I want to try again. For real, no shutting down, no disappearing." "Good," I said, because I wasn't planning on going anywhere. We moved in together 6 months later, not because we were rushing, but because we were ready. Or as ready as two emotionally constipated, anxiety-prone, fainting spell guys can ever be. He still fainted sometimes, so did I. But now we knew how to handle it. We kept salt packets in the car, Gatorade in the fridge, and each other's medical info taped inside the kitchen cabinet. He labeled it, "In case of emergency, don't freak out," in all caps. And every Thursday we still went to group, even when we didn't feel like it. Even when we were tired, or stressed, or busy. Because that's where we started. Where he first asked if he could put me down as a name on a form he thought didn't matter. And because I learned something important in that church basement. The person you put down as your emergency contact? That's not just paperwork. That's someone you trust to show up. And Lucas always did. So did I.